Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we are back, baby, after a pretty long break. Hope everybody had some good Thanksgiving together. We are going to be running through a pretty decent size. I'll have 5 games here on Monday after a decent size Sunday, I should say. So we've got some picks, best bets in this one. We've got play-up props up in our other video as well. So continue to follow along, like and subscribe to that page. We are also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have all the great written content we're putting up on the site right now. And you can use that odds finder tool. Make sure you're getting the best juice available to you from all of these books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's just go ahead and run right into your first best bet for tonight.
Lakers +6 at Philly. I think it opened at 4.5 and got some big tickets on the Sixers. But so books have moved the number a little bit. But I think with 6 points, I love the Lakers here. It's pretty similar to starting last week, I think, with the Cavs getting a big number at Philly. The Sixers are now 0-3 against the spread, their last 3 at home. They could not cover against the Cavs. They barely clawed to overtime there. And their defense has not been great in that span after like a really hot start against maybe just feasting on some bad teams in terms of their defensive numbers. Right now, their last 5 at home, a 120 defensive rating, -1 net. Embiid is getting his points, 31 a game, but only 47.5% shooting, not great for him, and he's a -28 in those games. And I think the bigger red flag is that they've only hit 10 threes a game at 33%. And that's what the Lakers are going to give up, right? They're a team like the Cavs that can match size with the Sixers team, force you to move it around the perimeter and hit some shots. And if the Lakers aren't doing that right now, they still had Cam Reddish out. Maybe they're more reliable 3-point shooter in terms of just a specialist. I wonder about that, about their ability to get points from the perimeter. So, LeBron James is going to find a way to hang in the fourth quarter if he's fully committed to a game right now, it seems. Him and AD, both good numbers, their last few against the Sixers. I know they haven't necessarily translated to wins, but, look at the supporting cast for them in some of those games. The last trip to Philly for LeBron, he played 44 in overtime alongside, Westbrook, Pat Bev, just not offensive threats around them. While the Lakers, they may not be hitting threes, they still have a better offense than that. But it's more about the defense here, and the fact that they're decently well rested, right? Only played 1 game since Thanksgiving. That was on Saturday, so normal rest. And in their last 3, third in defensive rating. They're number 1 limiting free throws on the season, number 7 limiting centers, and number 1 in fourth quarter points allowed. The clutch numbers are really the biggest stark thing. So if we get a close game here, I don't think the Sixers are going to be able to pull away, because the Lakers in the clutch, 7-3, 5th best net, 4th best defensive rating. Sixers in the clutch, 2-4, 28th in net, dead last defensive rating, and that's only a mark better, 133 defensive rating in home clutch situations. Still -34 net rating at home in the clutch. I think most of their clutch games at home have come against those Celtics, but look, a similar matchup just with the Lakers and Cavs. Again, like, they can pack it in, they can match size and make it tough enough on Embiid. And, we'll see where the Sixers are going to find points otherwise. But I think LeBron and company bring it in this matchup.
Yeah, I actually, on my early look, felt a little bit better about the Sixers. I don't feel good enough at 6 points either way, to be honest. My thing with this game is like, the numbers are pretty even on both sides in a lot of ways. Now, the clutch numbers definitely support what you're saying. The thing that I turn to is where this game lies in Philly's schedule right now. That's really what I was looking at with this game. Is Philly's had a rough go of it as of late. Like, their easiest games were Atlanta and Brooklyn for sure. And honestly, those were a couple of road games as well. So they've only had 1 home game in their last 5 or 6. And in that time, it's been a lot of who they play. They played Boston already. That was their home game. And then we got Minnesota, Cleveland, OKC. They're about to have the Pellies again, and they're about to have the Celtics again. This feels like a game they kind of need. Going back on the road for those 2 tough games after playing so many tough games like this, it does, with the rest, it's even on both sides at this point. So for me, the sort of try hard is there for Philly, but the the spread isn't in a place that I'm finding too much value at this point. So I'm kind of leaving it alone, but we'll see what happens in that one. One that I do feel comfortable with, and it's a game where we don't necessarily know who's playing for Utah, but I still like the Pelicans to cover in Utah, and right now it's at 5. I would still hit that. I don't really like it too much further up, but at -5, I'm good with it. I think we're getting value because the Jazz just beat the Pelicans. That's also why it opened at around 3 for the Pellies instead of the 5 that it got bet up to. Obviously, some people agree with us. They just lost without Zion, though. And the difference between having Zion and not having Zion is starting to really rear its head for this team this season. Part of that being CJ's not around. Trey Murphy, the third, also not around, hasn't played this season yet. And that's why Zion's presence has been so glaring, really, and his absence as well. Right now, with and without Zion this season, the defensive rating really takes a huge hit, goes up about 5 points per 100 without Zion. The offense also gets a little bit worse per 100 without him. The on-off stuff is also the same, whether he's in the game, like if he's available, those are his numbers with and without him. His on-off court numbers, pretty much the same, a little bit worse on offense without him, even than that, about 3 points worse per 100 when he's off the floor. The reason it also used to not be so glaring is he wasn't that good with Brandon Ingram. And that was the case at the very beginning of the season. Through the first 8 games, these two were a -8.8 net rating on the court together. Never going to be good when those are your two best players. Imagine if AD and LeBron were a -8.8. That team would have zero shot in hell. The last 5 games that they played together, however, they're up to a positive 27.8, basically 28 net rating in 60 minutes on the floor together. They're figuring stuff out, and the spacing looks a lot better. And that's also the reason that this team is 5-2 over its last 7 and has gone on a nice little run. The 2 games they lost, Zion was unavailable, so they're cruising with Zion in right now. It's just a matter of how often he can stick around. You might be worried about how good the Jazz have been limiting rebounds. I faded Jonas Valanciunas the other night against this team because of that. But at the same time, Walker Kessler is still sort of creeping his way back. He's played 21 minutes in his first game back from injury after missing like 7 games. We'll see how much he's definitely going to start to get a bit of an uptick, but he came off the bench. We don't even know if he's going to start in this one. We don't know if Markkanen's going to play. We don't know if Jordan Clarkson's going to play. And if their offensive weapons aren't there for them, I don't know how they hang with the Pellies with the 26th defensive rating in the league right now, and allowing the 3rd most points per game to power forwards and a bunch to small forwards as well. Like the 2 areas from where the Pellies are going to attack this team are going to be exactly where they're weakest on defense. And especially if Markkanen doesn't play, they're not going to be able to hang around in this one.
Yeah, which is why I have a similar angle here. If you don't want to mess with the spread, you can get plus 108 if you just same game parlay with Zion and Ingram to both score 20. I don't think the Pelicans are going to be able to win this game without them both doing it. On last Wednesday, I believe I had this parlay, but I had Ingram up to 25. I meant to kind of flip it and put Zion at 25 because he's more reliable scorer. And sure enough, it was Zion who got the 25. Whatever. This is a more conservative play, and it kind of deals with the uncertainty of whether Markkanen or Jordan Clarkson are going to play or not. Because if they do play, you gotta like some overs here in Utah. The way New Orleans has been playing offense, playing faster, and the way these 2 guys are scoring. Yeah, Josh mentioned it, 3rd most points to power forwards from Utah, also the 4th most to small forwards. And Ingram just had a pretty productive game without Zion. He has 20 plus points in 8 straight with Zion, to your point about them playing together. The Pels have won 5 straight with Zion. And in his last 4, he's averaging 27 a game, 20 on 61% shooting. He's a plus 51. Pretty similar to his last 6 numbers against Utah, which has never really had a good defensive power forward, where he averages 28 a game, 61% shooting. 4 of those in Utah. Utah on the season allowing 6th most paint points. That's actually up recently, even with Walker Kessler coming back. They allow the 2nd highest 2-point percentage. And they had some good defensive splits at home earlier in the season. Start this month against Memphis, Orlando, Portland, offenses that don't really scare you. Then Phoenix came to Utah, and we saw those games were just crazy shootouts. So the Suns get 135 a game. KD averaged 39. Book got 25 and 11.5 assists. So I expect the 2 stars to have plenty of success. I actually might trust them more if the Jazz get their 2 best offensive guys back, because I think the game state will be higher scoring, more free flowing, and I think the Pelicans can still win this game for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting ahead of too. Now, the -5, the little move to 5 from 3.5 in that game not that you're worried about it, just for the record, that is one that like I do worry about a little bit if it starts to keep creeping. If the Utah guys are playing, I still think it can be close. I don't like a 6 or 7 point spread on the road for the Pels if the Jazz are at full strength with Markkanen and Clarkson. That said, the money line bet is still safe at this point, and even like a -3.5 to -5 bet still feels safe at this point with how well the Pellies are playing. So just keep an eye on it. But the money line bet either way, I think is good to add to your SGP in that one. The final game I'm going with, also a same game parlay here. And I was looking at that Portland and Indy game. Portland on the second leg of a back-to-back, trying to figure out how I could just attack the Blazers. So we've got Bruce Brown over 2.5 assists, or go 2+ assists if you prefer. I'm okay with the 2+. That feels like a guarantee. The 2.5 is to keep our juice up a little bit. Miles Turner, 5+ boards, Indiana money line, and also an Indiana alt team total at 120.5. Those odds are actually at plus 146 right now on DraftKings. And I'll just start with the Bruce Brown assists here. Bruce Brown has gone over 3 in 8 of his last 10. He actually went over 0 times in his first 5 games with this team. I do attribute that pretty heavily to the fact that he was figuring out how to play with this team, and their offense has only gone straight up since that time. They also played Boston and Chicago in those first handful of games, and that was the 2 of the times that they have not gone over 120 points this season, and that was 2 of the only 3 times they've done it against really choppy teams. So the assists are going to be there for Bruce because he gets them in transition. He has 2 assists per game now on the season in transition, and that's obviously because he's so good at getting the board and going. He's so good and versatile at just getting out and going, even if he's not the point man, of which he's actually been the point man a decent amount, obviously, with these assist numbers. Portland does allow the second most assists to shooting guards. They are the worst transition defense as well. I'll talk about that in 1 second. And so the fact that Bruce thrives there is a good bet for him to get the assists in this one. Turner rebounds. Portland allows the 5th most rebounds to centers. Another chance for us to sort of talk about dominating and how he's not doing it because he does give up the 5th most rebounds to his opponent. They have the 5th worst rebound percentage in the NBA, does Portland. And look, the Pacers are not much better, but Miles Turner's individual rebound percentage is much better. He's gone 5+ in 11 of 13 games this season. I really just wanted to find a nice line that I could feel comfortable with. He went over versus Ayton in his last 3, including both last season. One of those games, he got 5 boards in 21 minutes and didn't even play that much in a really ugly affair between the Suns and the Pacers. And he's up to 14 rebound chances per game. So the 14 rebound chances is really where I stand. It's like clearly, even on the fast breaks, he gets out sometimes, but he's also happy to sort of stand back and be the anchor and get those boards up the way that he has as much lately. And so finally, just Indy to win. I don't think I need to explain that. They're a very good team. The Blazers are not a very good team. The spread is up to about 13, I believe. The team total is an alt up to 120.5. If you want their core team total bet, it's 127.5. That is not an over-under for a team that you will often see, but very impressive. It's all about the transition stuff. They get the most points in transition per game, 21. They actually average a few more than 21, but in their wins, they're averaging 21 fast break points per game. In their losses, they're averaging 13. So this is obviously a very important stat to them in their success. Portland allows the 4th most points per game in transition. They allow a 61 field goal percentage in transition. That's far and away the worst, by the way. The second worst is like 56% in transition. So they are just allowing you to waltz to the rim when you get out on the break. Teams are scoring 56% of the time that just get on the fast break. You're going to score 56% of the time. As bettors, we know 56% is a great number if you can hit it. And if you're going to hit it in the transition the way they are, that's going to be a given. 120 plus in 12 of the 15 games. And like I briefly mentioned, Boston, Orlando, Chicago. 3 of the best defensive teams, or whatever Chicago is, just a muck it up nasty team. Only 3 times they've gone under. In that Boston game, by the way, they didn't have Tyrese Halliburton. Neither did they for the Chicago game. So I would say this is a pretty good bet at 120 for them for the rest of the season, and especially against the worst transition D in the league.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I am going, interestingly, under on Halliburton threes because I think they will be able to waltz to the rim the way you pointed out. And Portland, both these teams are top 4 limiting threes, which also gives me confidence about the Miles Turner rebounds, less long rebounds, more down low stuff. With Ayton out there, you actually have a true center, not always the case in the NBA these days. So, yeah, I might even go like higher to 6 or 8 rebounds for Turner to juice it up a little bit. Yep. But also the fact that Malcolm Brogdon is back for the Blazers gives you a more competent offense, which, gives the game state a little bit more. I think it helps you get to this team total. because he's not getting back in transition as much, but he will keep the Blazers scoring and then forcing the Pacers to keep their scoring tear going.
You hope so, yeah. It was a weird 108-102 game between them and the Bucks the other day. I don't know what's going on there. Obviously, that's going to be a much different look with a super try-hard regular season team like the Pacers at home. So points, Pacers to win, and a few props in there as well from the boys. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Check out our play of props that we also have up for you today on Monday Slate. Until we see you next, happy betting.